Hi, my name is Laurel Bronze, and welcome to my presentation called We're All Addicted to Something, using essential oils to shift addictive patterns in the physical, emotional, and spiritual body. There is a ton of information about this on my website, essentialoilsforaddiction.com, so come check that out. And again, my name's Laurel, and I'd love to hear from you. So drop me a line at essentialoilsofbend@gmail.com. So here's the introduction. The whole thing is 4 parts: an intro, then we're going to talk about physical addiction, emotional, and spiritual. And that's it. So each part is about around 30 minutes, a little under, a little more. So I really encourage you to dig in and watch all of them. And please, if you do find that it resonates with you, please share this with your friends. Okay, so here's my story. I drink a bottle of wine a night for 15 years, so that's about 4 glasses. Some nights a little more, some nights a little less, usually more at parties. And throughout this whole time, I had a lot of red flags. I fell off my bike quite a bit. So all these scars up here are from a bike accident. I have a number of chain scars on my legs from some accidents I don't even remember. Other red flags: problems at work, fights with friends and family. So I was very addicted and thought that I could handle it and manage it. And my attempts at managing it were jogging. So I usually would run 7 to 10 miles every other day. And then on the off days, I went to Bikram yoga, which is a very detoxifying yoga practice. The room has really high heat, and it really helped to get all the chemicals out of my body. So I was in that system for a really long time, decade and a half, and suddenly everything came to a head. I had a couple of kind of serious incidences. I got hit by a car on my bike, and that was when I was totally sober. But the aftermath of that kind of led to a downward spiral, and then a dysfunctional long-distance relationship, et cetera, and it led to day drinking, which was no longer manageable. I was going to the store as soon as I woke up. I usually had the shakes and the sweats, and never really felt good, never really that buzzed. I was just drinking to not feel like I was going to die of a heart attack. And that went on for about 2 months. It wasn't every day, but it was enough. And my friends, God love them, and my family helped get me into rehab. So I've been sober now for about 1 year and 3 months. So rehab, overall, very positive experience. I really helped have some physical distance from the substance. I really needed that. And I also saw a lot of flaws in the system. So I'm very grateful for it, and simultaneously, I feel like so much needs to be improved. The majority of people that were there in my rehab were there for their 2nd through 8th time. One of the counselors had been through rehab 23 times. And then these next 2 statistics are just general, about rehabs in general. Only 10% of people that go through rehab stay sober for life, and 50% relapse within their first month. So clearly something is not working. And first of all, it is very, very, very difficult to quit. So I totally acknowledge that that's one of the reasons why treatment doesn't work. But second, most treatment centers, I think it's into the 90 percentile, rely almost entirely on the 12 steps as the only solution for sobriety. And I personally feel that it's very short-sighted, and it is clearly not helping the majority of people that are struggling with addiction. So I knew in my heart that there had to be other ideas and other solutions out there, and I spent most of last year really digging in and researching what these could be. And that said, I really don't believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater either. I think the 12 steps are an incredible tool, and I am invested in going through them for the rest of my life. And I think the program itself is really valuable. It gives people a place to go, and there's a lot of wisdom in those rooms. So I'm not throwing that system out entirely. I'm simply asking and proposing the question that as a society, that it's time to take addiction seriously and not rely just on the program as our only solution. So this year I've done some really cool things. I got my yoga teaching certification, and I've done 2 different yoga and 12-step recovery or yoga of recovery programs. And that's been very interesting. I've done a lot of exploring about how trauma lives in the body and how our emotions are largely a chemical process, and how it's so connected with how we develop addictions. So I want to just jump into how essential oils, specifically doTERRA essential oils, that's what we're talking about here for this presentation, and some of their products, how they help me early in recovery. So if you get nothing else out of this whole presentation, if you're looking to help yourself or a loved one, if you can just have these 3 or 4 takeaways to bring with you. So sleep, anxiety/depression, which can be the same, 2 sides of the same coin, nutrition, a lifestyle shift, some emotional excavation and release. I really believe in the company. Okay, get your hands on some Serenity, particularly the restful complex. It's so helpful. Early in recovery, it's very, very difficult to fall asleep. Our system is totally out of whack, and there's nothing more comforting or helpful than just really being able to shut off for the night. So get your hands on that. And then the oil itself is also a godsend. The citrus oils are incredibly uplifting, and we'll go into the science of why they work so well in terms of making us feel happy. But we need all the help we can get when we're trying to break addictive patterns and quit our substances of choice. And these can definitely help you do that. Frankincense, I cannot say enough about. I sometimes hourly put a couple of drops underneath my tongue. On average, it's about 3 or 4 times a day. And it does penetrate the blood-brain barrier. And we'll get into how we can kind of quantify some of that in later on in this presentation. But I will say that, at least for me, it really does lift me up. So frankincense, get your hands on it. The supplements are incredible during our addictions, especially if they are substance abuse. Our bodies just get so worn down and undernourished, and anything that we can do to build them back up is extremely necessary. I can teach a whole class on the supplements, and there's great information on my website, Essential Oils for Addiction. So please do check out that. But I can't say enough about these, and they do have the ability to really give an overall sense of well-being. And again, we need all of our tools when we're trying to get well. So doing the oils as a business, I don't know if I've made that clear, but I am a doTERRA rep, and I do sell the oils as a part of my living now. It's been incredibly supportive to my sober lifestyle. Here is a picture of me on the Grand Canyon, and this was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. So for the last 10 years, I was the marketing director at a really successful kayak shop here in Bend, Oregon. And those were wonderful years of my life. I feel so grateful for them. I'm not one of those people that's like, my drinking life was all bad and sober life was all good. It's, there's always trade-offs. And this is a picture of me on the Grand Canyon having beer for breakfast. If you can notice, the light is really low in this picture. and very socially acceptable to have morning beers on the Grand Canyon. And then in contrast, this is me down in Costa Rica with some of my sober buddies from yoga teacher training. And there was, out of 50 of us, there was coincidentally like 10 girls that were actually in recovery. And that was amazing experience. And I don't know if it was that training that drew that kind of people, or maybe it's yoga in general, but I felt very supported down there. And then just the simple act of sharing the oils with other people, I end up being able to spend a lot of like actual like face-to-face time with people where I can, I really have permission to get very invested in their health and their emotional balance. And our conversations very quickly go to a place that's very authentic. And, we're physically sharing space. We're talking about things that are really important to them in their life and their family. And, this is a sober interaction, by and large, even people that are doing classes at night, a lot of times those are, without wine. And so it really opens up the door for you to start building a career that is part of a whole lifestyle shift. And furthermore, I just really believe in the company. This is, in the course of my recovery, you end up doing a lot of this personal work and just thinking a lot about values in general. And what is so cool about doTERRA is a lot of the work that they do in developing countries where they source the oils. And this is a photo of the harvesters in Haiti, which is one of the poorest countries in the world, and where the vetiver is harvested is one of the poorest places in Haiti. And doTERRA has gone in there and just done some radical work in terms of not only paying the harvesters fair and sustainable wages, but really helping to lift up the entire community by assuring that they have medical care, helping with their education system, etc. So this is definitely something that I can get behind, and it really feels in line with my values. So, and now let's jump into what addiction actually is. And I love this photo because part of this presentation is I really want you to open your mind to the idea that addiction is not just somebody, shooting heroin up in the corner in a dusty or dark bar. We all have compulsive habits and patterns that absolutely could be characterized as addiction, and checking our phone is definitely one of them. So here's like textbook definition for you: compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences, strong and harmful need to have or do, and it becomes disruptive to our normal routine. So physically, psychologically, socially. I like this definition: addictions are just an outside solution for joy, inner peace, and escape. That one really resonates with me. So addiction comes in many forms. I liked using that photo of the phone because I really, again, just want us all to open our minds to the fact that it's not just drinking alcoholically. It's also codependent relationships. It's also compulsive checking. It's also sugar addictions, caffeine addictions. A lot of people are addicted to cortisol now. And so even if we're not addicted to substances, we may be addicted to emotional behaviors that cause chemical responses. And in and of itself, addiction is isolating, and it insidiously and deceptively prevents us from reaching our full potential and happiness. So that's where the real tragedy lies. Essential oils are an incredible tool for shifting our emotional responses, easing our physical cravings, and opening our hearts to connection with others and ourselves. So they're a natural way to balance and awaken the incredible pharmacy within. And there's something to reach for. Addicts, we're very used to reaching outside of ourselves for something. I need something. And essential oils can really be a replacement and a buffer between you and the substance of choice. And we'll get into how they are so helpful. So addiction comes in so many forms, everything from, alcoholism, cannabis, prescription meds, opiates, crack, cocaine, porn, sex, love relationships, and codependency. That's a really hidden one. If you have any suspicion that you might be codependent, I definitely encourage doing some research on it. There's just some very empowering work out there now. And then food, sugar, caffeine. I'm really struggling in that zone right now. Not as much with food, but sugar and caffeine. The technology, compulsive checking, just being plugged in all the time. And then exercise. Mostly this is a really positive addiction. I live in Bend, Oregon, and it's like there's a lot of exercise addicts here. And how it's crossed that line is, are you exercising even when you're injured, and is it like exacerbating the injury? So here I want to talk about the concept that we have in our society as the addict as the other. So conveniently in our society, we have a collective belief that addiction can only happen to other people. This is a very black and white issue with the addicts and alcoholics over there in NA and rehabs and jail and institutions, and everybody else over here happily drinking wine and in complete control. And you see this in Ben's microbrew culture. So publicly, we're really showing this good side, the culturally acceptable behavior of beer tasting, coming off the mountain and having some beers, Deschutes. But the dark side of this is that every night people are getting cut off in bars. And often people are here on vacation and they're so hungover, they can't go skiing or mountain biking the next day. And this can also just happen just on a really subtle level where, you're on vacation, you're drinking a lot more, you find yourself just getting a lot more annoyed with your kids and in general, irritated throughout the days. And here you are like on vacation. So, the cultural expectation is that one must get better at managing their drinking, not that they should stop the party altogether. So, and then to add to this story of the addict as the other, in AA and 12-step, it strongly asserts that you have to hit bottom in order to want to get well. And then you have to announce to a group of strangers that you're an alcoholic and believe that you have a physical flaw, maybe even a disease. And this is just the facts here. It's nothing against 12-step programs, but this is a deal breaker for the majority of people, okay? They may have had negative consequences in their life, but they don't believe that they've hit bottom, and they may never hit bottom in their lifetime. So, they'll go to a meeting, they hear somebody talking about, getting 5 DWIs, and that new person in the meeting convinces themselves that they are different than these flawed people, and then off they go. And AA confirms this by promoting the idea that indeed that they as a group are different than the rest of the population. So it's really us and them perspective on both ends. And this is, there's a huge danger in this polarized view because most people are actually living here. Addiction is on a spectrum, and most people are really in that more blue and purple zone. And, they can go for decades without ever accepting or admitting that they have any kind of problem. And I will say, this blue and purple zone, the consequences are much more insidious and progressive. And so the person doesn't really realize that they're happening. At least over in the pink zone, you crash your car, you get a deal, you're like, okay, well, yeah, I have a problem. I'm very interested in people in all these zones, but particularly in this more of this gray area. And so this presentation it's broken down into the introduction, and then I'm going to talk about physical addiction, the emotional and psychological aspects of addiction, and then the last part, we're going to talk about spirituality. So this is going to be really fun. Again, my name is Laurel Bruntz. Please do hit me up at essentialoilsofbend@gmail.com. My website is Essential Oils for Addiction. Once you do start building your essential oils collection, I would so appreciate it if you got your oils through me. My retail website is mydoterra.com, Essential Oils of Bend, or /Essential Oils of Bend. My wellness advocate number is 276-7718. And I really appreciate your support. I make 25% off anything that you buy from that site. And I would love to help you get your own wholesale account so you can save that 25%. So let's do it. And again, thanks for watching. We have 3 more parts to this presentation.